I'm going to show you how I built this desert temple in Minecraft. It took me about 3 hours to build, about 6 hours to render all the replay footage. Hopefully you guys like it. It is going to be awesome. Okay, so the first thing I did was I plotted out the entire shape of the temple with wool. I built along chunk borders to guide my building and make sure that I was building within my own constraints. It was what I could do in the time I had. After I built up the obelisks, I noticed that the shape of the temple was a little small, so I extended it along the east and west axis. Once I started building up the corners of the temple, I noticed that the east and west side were too long, and I forgot to extend the north and south side. So that's exactly what I did. Since I built along the chunk borders, I was able to place the obelisks precisely where I needed. After I had the basic shape of the temple finished, I started filling in the layers of what would eventually be the whole shape of the temple. And after I finished building up the shape, I changed the material of the wool to sandstone. And after that, I started to work on the entrance. Now, at first I wanted to sculpt the skull that made the entrance out of a big block of sandstone, but that proved to be way too time consuming, so I just generated a sphere with world edit and built a skull shape around that. This was my first attempt at building a skull in Minecraft, so it's not perfect, I admit. It's actually far from perfect, but hey, cut me some slack, it was my first attempt. After I finished building the skull, I cut and pasted in place, and it took me a few attempts to get the placement of the skull right. And after I pasted in the skull, I filled in all the gaps left by the pasting with world edits. And after I had finished the entrance, I started working on the interior. So with the interior, I first started by flattening the inside of the floor from a natural terrain to a more flat room. I also changed all of the sand that was in the room to sandstone, which would make things a lot easier in the later steps when building the tomb. I also ended up lighting a beacon at the tip of the pyramid, 4 beacons to be precise, and I powered them with netherite. After building up the pillars and placing a lava mode path, I noticed that the skull of the entrance was actually off-center, so I went back to modify it, and that's what you see me doing here. Now, it was a bit of a struggle. I even ended up deforming the head of the skull, but I managed to fix it, and I managed to get everything centered. After I dealt with that whole debacle of the skull being deformed and off-center, I started working on the throne and the path to the throne. I originally placed down lanterns, but then I switched to torches because I thought that might look better, and it did, in my opinion. After that, I started working on a couple fire braziers to put on either side of the throne path. I then finished off the rest of the torches for the throne room, and started working on the precious metals and materials that the pharaoh and his family had supposedly gathered. I then colored the beacons up top, and decided to place some fire braziers on the top of the obelisks as well, after modifying the fire braziers to look a little better on the inside of the pyramid. Now, unfortunately, the part where I built the fire braziers in the replays was corrupted, and I could not get the replay file to recover. So you'll just have to use your imagination to see how I built that. I also changed the material of some of the temple to chiseled sandstone and cut sandstone for the majority of the temple. And down here, you're finally seeing me build the tomb. For the entrance to the tomb, I just used some redstone with a couple sticky pistons and a lever. After I built out the basic shape of the tomb, I placed a few torches and a few chests, and after going around in the creative inventory to figure out what metals and other materials I should place in the chests, I found the stuff that I thought would work. After that, I went back into the throne room, and I finished off all the lighting in the temple. For this, I just decided to get creative and just a little bit immature with my creative spirits and just go with beacons for the inside lighting. I know there are going to be people screaming at me that you shouldn't be using beacons like this for building, but your opinion does not matter. And with that, I have now finished this desert temple. So, let's go ahead and start the montage. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that build project that I did. And if you want to download this world for yourself, I will link the Dropbox link to this world file in the description of this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and follow my socials, all that jazz. Stay bright, stay awesome, and as always, remember, it's cool to be a nerd. Goodbye!